Hello, everybody. Randy Patterson here with Boomerosity. Boy, do I have a treat for you. Once again, it involves a blues artist, and this time it is with Albert Castiglia, who I've been a fan of for several years. I think I first was turned on to him about 6 or 7 years ago. He came through my neck of the woods. I'm in East Tennessee, and I, at the time, belonged to a little blues society that was local here. And they brought Albert in, and I'd never heard of him. I don't profess to know all the acts, and I realize maybe some of you think I should, but I didn't, and I don't. But the society brought in Albert, and I was blown away. It was in a little small venue we had here. It was called Barley's at the time, and my little hometown of Maryville, Tennessee. And Albert and his band was there, and he blew me away. I mean, Albert is phenomenal. If you've never heard him, you're going to love him. So check him out. But he is associated with another great blues artist who I just have all the admiration in the world for, by the name of Mike Zito. If you've been a longtime follower of Boomerosity, you know that I've interviewed Mike a year or so ago, and several years before that when I was in Dallas. And he has, since that first interview, started a record company, Gulf Coast Records. It's mostly a blues-centric type of label, and he is doing a phenomenal job with that. And he and Albert are great friends, and Albert is now on Gulf Coast. So anyway, they had put out this album that you see behind me here called Blood Brothers, and the plan was for them to tour together and promote this album. Well, unfortunately and sadly, Mike's wife is fighting a very tough, very uphill battle with cancer, with prostate cancer, or not prostate, but pancreatic cancer, and it's not looking good. And so Mike is, being the dutiful husband that he is with his wife. And all of our thoughts and prayers go out to both of them. We know that's an ugly battle to fight. But Albert fills us in a little bit of what the status is as of the time of the interview. And while Mike is having to stand out and Albert continuing with the tour, he has brought in Gary Hoey in to fill in for Mike, and that promises to be a phenomenal tour with those two. And so we talk about that tour, we talk about this album, we talk about the blues business in general and the industry in general, and it just had a lot of fun. Very informal. Albert's laid back, I'm laid back, and we just have a lot of fun talking. So if you love the blues and you're unfamiliar with Albert, please check out his work. There's not a bad album he's put out yet. He works great with a bunch of other blues artists, so if you see his collaborations with them, you know it's going to be a great bit of work there. So please, if you would, listen to this interview, share it with your friends. If you haven't already, like the Boomerosity channel, subscribe, and keep up with us, because we're always bringing new people in to talk to, and some old friends as well. So without any further ado, here is my first interview of what I hope are many more to come with blues great Albert Castiglia. Until next time, this is Randy Patterson. Take care. Albert, it's a pleasure to finally connect with you. I saw you at a very small show in a very small venue in Maryville, Tennessee, probably about 6 or so years ago, and it was one of the best blues shows I'd seen. So it was
Bracket. What was it? Well, where was it at?
It was well, the venue is actually Barley's. It's now called the
Barley.
Blues.
Yeah.
It's for the Smoky Mountain Blues Society.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I never forget, because you did a sustain, and I know how you guys do that. I'm not a musician, but you did a sustain that felt like it was 20 minutes long, man. It's just going, you're kind of looking around, just having fun with it. I thought it was great.
Tricks. It's all tricks, man.
Yeah.
Smoke and mirrors.
So thanks so much for taking the time to meet up with me. Before we get into about the album and the tour and all that kind of stuff, I had a couple of off-subject questions, and that is, are you fully back into the post-COVID groove now, or is there still some getting your land legs back on it?
No, I'm in best shape of my life. In a good position, good physically, mentally, professionally. I'm on solid ground.
Very good.
It was hairy for a minute physically, but I've been taking better care of myself. I think COVID was kind of a blessing in disguise that it forced me to really slow down and because I was like hitting it pretty hard on the road. I've always been a social drinker. I
Mhm.
only really drank when I went out. I never drank at home, but problem was I only drank when we played, and we were doing 200 days a year. So I was kind of catching up to me a little bit.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was a little, and sometimes it was a lot. It wasn't like I was drinking a lot all the time, but it just added up, and I was found myself very tired
Mhm.
right before the lockdown. And when I found myself at home a lot, I didn't drink, and I kind of got used to it, and I've just kind of been taking better care of myself. I kind of got into. I took a kung fu class, uh, Wing Chun Kung Fu, and I did doing some kickboxing, and it's really helped me maintain the obstacles that the road can pose. You know,
It
it
can
can be
help.
really tough. You know, it's a tough grind. You don't really when we get paid, we don't get paid for playing. We get paid for grinding and out, and driving and hitting, driving overnight and driving early in the mornings and loading up and breaking down. I mean, that's really what we get paid for.
Yeah.
Not to play.
People don't see the non-glory type of things. They just see the spotlight and the microphone and the guitar solos, right?
Right. I mean, and the playing makes it all worth it, but it is a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a job, and it's no different than anybody else's job. And it, you're part. You know, you're a musician, but you're also kind of you're part-time truck driver as well. You're a roadie.
Road
We
manager.
don't have our own crew. You know, you were carrying our own stuff, so you're doing many jobs.
Yeah.
With this, so you have to be in really good shape. Uh, you know, I can't do the things I did when I was in my 20s and 30s. I'm 53 now, and you just got to take better care of yourself when you get to that age and you're doing this. And so I'm doing very well right
Good.
now.
Well, you look great. I'm 10 years older than you, so man, you're making me look bad though. Still, so
Oh, you look great. 63, really?
yeah, I'll be 64 in October. So,
Oh, you look great.
well, thank you. So, one other question. I know that you and Mike Zito, who I've interviewed a couple times, love the guy, amazing performer. I know he's going through a rough patch right now with his wife. How is his wife doing? Can you let fans know how she's doing? Is she
Well,
getting better? Or
no, it's stage 4 pancreatic,
God,
and so it's not really good for her right now. And so Mike's taking, you know, he's taking the summer off to spend whatever time he has with her,
God.
and he's gonna be with her as long as he needs to be, and we're just gonna hold it down till he gets back. We got Gary Hoey filling in, and it's not been easy, but you know, I text him and we call and we contact each other and talk about other things other than what he's going through.
Yeah.
Actually, I had texted him yesterday to ask him if he had watched the All-Star game, and because he likes baseball. We go when we were on the road together. We go to baseball games, and I had asked him if he'd watched it, and he said no, it was a rough day today, and he didn't. But then we talked about it, and you know, we just try to talk about other things other than what he's going through currently. You know, because he's going through enough of it. I mean,
Oh.
he's been through it for the last year,
Mm-hmm.
and through the last year, because she got the diagnosis a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get a diagnosis, like pancreatic is the most insidious. It's one of the most insidious cancers there is. You don't know you have it until you have pain, and when you discover the pain, you're already far gone in it. You're already past 3 stages into the 4th stage by the time you realize you have it. So he's been dealing with this for a year, and he's been, you know, he's shed a lot of tears privately, but when he's on the road with us, he tries to get in full band mode, and he tries not to think about it. You know, he tries not to lay it on other people, but we feel it.
Oh, you've got to. When you're close to him, you've got to. And
And she's she's a wonderful person, an amazing woman. You know, she's the she's a big part of how he got sober.
Yeah.
And it's like she stuck by him and helped him build this business that he's got now with Gulf Coast Records. Um, Nobody gets to where they get by themselves, and certainly a good woman is very important. I'm very fortunate, and Mike's been very fortunate. It's just a very hard time for him and the band.
Yeah.
It's painful to see them both go through this.
Understood. Well, please relay my well wishes and let him know that he's in my thoughts and prayers. And I don't say that lightly. I know it's said as a cliche, but every time I see a post with you guys, I'm reminded to breathe a prayer. And it's I can only imagine the emotions and the roller coaster he feels like he's on. So
Well, every well wish he gets, he feels it and he appreciates it. Now I'll certainly let him know.
thank you. Well, before we get on the tour, let's talk about this Blood Brothers album, man. I loved it ever since it first dropped. I got the advance copy and wasn't I forget now how what but for some reason my schedule prevented me from reaching out to you guys for a interview then. But tell me a little bit about your take on this album now that it's been out for a couple months. I mean, I love it. I think it's an amazing album. I've been turning friends on to it. What tell me your view of that album, how it came together, how long it took to put it together, all that kind of stuff.
Well, the Blood Brothers project, as far as the touring band, was like it was years in the making. I mean, I've been wanting when I was with Roof Records and Mike was in with Roof Records, and Samantha Fish was with Roof Records. I had always wanted Roof to try to get all three of us on the road together for a tour. I thought it would have been great because we were all best friends, and particularly Mike and I, because we always found it, because Samantha found her, Samantha's just blowing up right now. But
Mhm.
Mike and I have always jammed together consistently for 15 years. But Roof was never hot on the idea. And then after I signed with Mike's label, we found each other jamming more and more at each other's gigs and stuff. And whenever he was in town, I'd go sit in with him, and vice versa. And then after the pandemic, uh, I caught COVID and I was in really bad shape. It was 2021, and I had the long symptoms were really bad. It really kicked my butt. And I just wasn't feeling right. And even after quarantine, and then Mike dragged me out of bed. I think he said, "Hey man, I got these dates in the Midwest. I wanted." He had just put out this his last record with Roof, I believe, was that Chuck Berry tribute album.
Yeah.
And he wanted to do some shows to support that record. So he asked me to go on the road with him for a week. So I went on the road with him and Joanna Connor, and we did the Chuck Berry tribute dates.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt good being on the road after being at home sick and miserable. And it had a positive effect on me. And the shows were great. And then a few months after that, we were asked to do the legendary Rhythm and Blues cruise together. Because Roger Neighbor from the Cruise was at our Kansas City show that we had done for that Chuck Berry tour, and Walter Trout had a prior commitment that he couldn't get out of, and he couldn't do the cruise, and so we filled in, and that went extremely well. And then about a week or two after that, Mike called me and said, "Look, I got this idea. I already talked to the agency. We're going to do this tour together. We're going to have both bands. We're going to run both bands on the tour together. We're going to play at the same time, and we're going to go on the road together because it's been going well. The feedback for he and I playing has been great. It had been great. So he's like, we'll do this." and I just follow what Mike does because Mike's very driven and Mike's very proactive. You know, I often compare our relationship to the Rat Pack, to Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin.
Mm-hmm.
Him being Frank Sinatra, always in control, always want do this, wanting to go out and party, and I'm just like Dean Martin at home with the martini in the hot tub, just waiting for his call. Well, where are we going? Where are we going? And then so he told me flat out what we were going to do, and I was like, okay. We didn't talk about money. We didn't really talk about logistics. He had a plan, and I was along with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we toured 2022 as the Blood Brothers, and we didn't have any original material. We were just doing rock cover tunes, stuff that we grew up listening to when we were kids, stuff from the 80s, you know, 70s and 80s, because we didn't have any original material. And then, like halfway through that tour in 2022, we were like, well, no, it was early 2022. We were like, well, we decided that we were going to do an album. And so we wrote material during the year 2022, leading up to the summer when we went into the studio. I think we went in the studio in September of 2022 for the Blood Brothers album. And Mike got Joe Bonamassa and Josh Smith to produce the record. Mm-hmm. And man, it was a game changer having them in the studio. They really changed the way we sounded. Like when you hear us individually, Mike and I individually, we have a distinct sound. We have a definitely a distinct blues rock sound. But when we made this album with Joe and Josh, it took us to another level sonically, I think.
Yeah.
The songwriting was a little more outside the box. The production was a lot more sophisticated. Is that the proper word? I think it might be. It's just a very polished.
Mm-hmm.
And it really appealed to me the way we went in there and did it.
Well, were there any surprises in making it? I mean, you've mentioned about the production and how it was put together with Joe and Josh in there, but what were surely some surprises came out of that in the mix of it all?
Well, yeah, the surprise was that they wanted me to write a ballad. Because Mike is good at writing. I'm sorry, I had a piece of toast.
No problem.
Very hungry. I get up at 11:30. That's my schedule. And it drives Zito nuts. Zito gets up at 7 a.m, gets on a treadmill, and I get up at 11:30 and do my exercises in my hotel room. It drives him nuts that I can't toe the line on his schedule. But so right now I'm having lunch, which is toast, and I also eat like a gypsy. But where were we? Oh yeah, they wanted me to write a ballad because Mike and I were writing tunes, and they were our tunes. You know, they were. It was more. They weren't Blood Brothers songs so much as they were Albert Castiglia songs or Zito songs. They were rockers. They were real rockin' tunes, and they needed something a little more laid back. And Mike, well, I think we were in Delaware because that was a real important. It was a real pivotal moment. That turned out to be one of the big singles on the record, 1,000 Heartaches. And he was like, "Man, you need to write a ballad. We got too many rockers on this." I said, "Okay," and I don't know how I did it, but it came out. That was a surprise. Yeah, that was pushed. We were pushed more than we ever were creative, because we had Joe Bonamassa in the room and Josh Smith, who is an amazing producer, an incredible guitar player with an amazing resume. These guys are cream of the crop, especially now as a production team.
Yep.
So the surprise to me was that they asked me to write a ballad, but pleasantly enlightened by how their approach to producing was. Like we get used, as blues artists and blues rock artists, we get used to being in the studio with everybody in the room and just playing live, and that's great. It's the way I'll probably do 90% of my records. But with Joe and Josh, we stacked everything up from the ground up with production wise. Like the song started with an acoustic guitar, a vocal, and a click track to keep time. And that's how we started every song when we recorded. Those were the foundation of the song, and then we stacked everything up after that.
Right.
We added bass, drums, whatever, keyboards. We just built it like a pyramid, and it was an amazing way to make a record. I loved it. I loved doing it that way. So that was a pleasant surprise as well.
Do you think that overall, I mean, I'm kind of a business geek too, you know, besides music, business stuff is my porn, so to speak. But one thing that amazed me about Bomba Masa is, you know, what a business model he's put together. I mean, from soup to nuts, he owns everything, right? And, you know, he's not farming out a bunch of stuff, and he owns it all. How much of that is an influence on like you and Zito together? I mean, and with Gulf Coast Records and all that kind of stuff, do you see a big influence from Bonamassa on that part of it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, whether you like them or you don't like them, and there's a lot of haters. You know, the bigger the name, the bigger the target. But you cannot deny what he's done for himself, because you know the industry is cruel, and people give up just because the big labels don't want you. People tend to give up. They think, well, maybe they're not worth it. But Joe just said, "Screw you! I'm going to do it my way," and that's what Mike did too, and that's what I did. When now I don't want to. Every ounce of trials and tribulations that I've experienced in my life in the business has led me to where I am today, which is in the best place I've ever been. So I harbor no ill will to any of the things that I went through. If I hadn't gone through those things, I wouldn't be here right now with 4 Blues Music Awards and an incredible touring schedule right now. But there was a period where I felt like I wasn't appreciated by the labels that I was with, and creatively I wanted to push some boundaries, and I was restricted. And then Mike, you know, I'll give you an example. The Masterpiece album. It came that album was inspired by all this stuff that I had gone through in the year 2018, discovering that I had a daughter that I didn't know and 2 grandchildren. I mean, they were the muses on that record. And Mike, as my producer, said, "We got something here. Let's do this." And I got an idea. We're gonna do all the instruments ourselves, and that's what we did. And in all honesty, Mike did most of the instruments. I played guitar, vocals, a little bass, but Mike played all the drums and bass tracks on that record. And we just did it ourselves, kind of a la Shelby Lynn's breakthrough record in the early 2000s. She just did all the instruments, and it was a great record. But Roof Records didn't dig it. They weren't feeling it, and they didn't want to put it out. So unless I had made some concessions that I was unwilling to make. They wanted to change the mix. They wanted to remix it. They wanted to take the drums out and replace the drums with with another drummer, and I was like, no, I'm not willing to make that concession. And the record was in danger of not being released. And then Mike stepped in and bought the record, and it became the second release on Gulf Coast Records, and it won the Blues Music Award for Blues Rock Album of the Year. So
I love it.
yeah. So I mean, the example that Joe has set. I hope people are paying attention. I hope young artists are paying attention to what he's done. Because my story is, a little bit on a smaller scale compared to Joe's, but they're both the same premise. If the industry don't like you, that shouldn't stop you from doing what you want to do, and that's what Joe's done.
Mm-hmm.
Joe had a lot to offer, but at some point, the industry kind of let him down, but he didn't give up, and he owns everything. Good for him. I try to own as much of myself as possible. I try not to, you gotta, as a business person, you also have to learn how to delegate authority and delegate responsibilities to other people. You got to admit, you got to be strong enough a businessman to know that you have shortcomings and there are things you can't do on your own. So you got to have a team. And I lucked out because now I have the best team possible. I have now I'm finally arrived at a point where I have the perfect team to me. I have a great agency in Intrepid Artists. I have a great record label in Gulf Coast Records. I have my wife. She's my manager. She's always. I mean, that's what she is. She won't. She don't. I don't think that title makes her comfortable, but that's what she is. She does a lot of dirty work that I can't do.
Mm-hmm.
And I have Amy Brad, who does my social media, and so it's when everything falls into place like that, boy, there's nothing like it.
Yep.
And it took a long time for me to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so I respect Joe's journey because mine was very similar.
Yep. Well, I know some other blues artists I've talked to that haven't made it anywhere near as far as you guys have. Kind of poo-pooed him too, thinking he had it too easy. And then I watched that documentary on him. It's like those guys need to watch that to really hear the story,
But I never saw I haven't gotten around to seeing the documentary, but it could not have been easy for him. Without watching the documentary, I could tell you right away, it could not have been easy for him. He was a child prodigy. He gave up so much for this life. 15 years old. 15 years old? He was on the road with Bloodline.
Yep.
Man, 15-year-old kids. I don't know what I was doing at 15 years old. I was a sophomore or a freshman in high school, playing video games and trying to make the baseball team,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
JV baseball. He gave up a lot because for what he wanted. He gave up a childhood. So just by that alone, you cannot tell me he had it easy.
Yep.
It's not easy. There's nothing about this life that's easy. And the people that say things like that are people that haven't put in that maybe have put in the work, but have directed their energies in the wrong places or made some bad decisions. We all learn lessons in business late. Sometimes you learn lessons late in life. I'm kind of a slow learner, which is why all this stuff seemed to happen to me. All this good fortune seemed to happen to me in my mid to late 40s.
Mm-hmm.
But man, people got to stop hating on Joe.
Yep.
He busted his ass. He worked really hard, and he got a good team around him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it is. And people need to strive to do the same, to work hard, don't stop, and find a good team to surround, good people to surround yourself with who know what they're doing.
Exactly. So I know on albums, I quit asking a long time ago, quit asking artists what their favorite song is, because it's like asking them to pick their favorite child. But what I
Right.
do ask now is what song would they point to as a calling card for the rest of the album? Now I have my one that I point to,
What is
but
that?
I'm just curious. It's the hold on here. I got it pulled up because I don't have them all memorized. Hold on. I got it right there, and it is "You're Gonna Burn." That's the one I
Oh,
like a lot.
I
Love that.
like that.
And the one that well, "In My Soul." I think you guys just kind of just singled that one, didn't you?
Mhm.
And
Yes,
so
it
so
was in my soul. Yeah, in my Hey Sweet Mama, In My Soul, and Thousand Heartaches were the three singles.
yeah.
But yeah, I like You're Gonna Burn is one of my favorites. I love playing that song live. Um, the two songs. Look, A Thousand Heartaches is always going to be very special to me because I was the feet was the fire was held at my feet on that one, and I was forced to get out of my comfort zone and write something, write a ballad, and I was really proud of how that song was, and it was a song about taking the high road when love goes bad, which I had never really done. Most of my songs are my love songs are pretty angry, bitter, you know. For example, I had written a song called "I Kept You Around Too Long." That was my idea of a love song. That one, or "Speed On" was another one. Go speed on. There was an old saying in Chicago when somebody was jiving you. It was a term I learned from one of Junior Wells's nephews. Speed on before you get peed on. And I turned a song into that phrase. Of course, I took the peed on part out, but so the themes of my love songs were often bitter, and I took the high road on this one. It was a little more reflective and a little more accepting of love gone bad, and I was really proud of how I wrote that tune. But on the flip side of the coin, there's "You're Gonna Burn," which is about pure anger and the bitterness again, my bitter side, which is what I kind of thrive at in the minor blues, angry love vein kind of thing. I kind of really thrive on that, and
Well,
so I like both sides of those coins.
the tone in that song is really something, man. I was like, wow, that was you
They got
probably get offered a lot of money to divulge what you've put together to get that kind of tone out, huh?
We just ran a Les Paul through an amplifier that was maxed out to 10 and got this. Yeah,
Wow.
uh, it was that was a great song to make. I loved making that song. I love doing that song. I
Mhm.
love playing it live. And you're right. I love the tone of that Les Paul was sounding real special on that tune. Kind of reminded me of "Same Old Blues" by Eric Clapton from the Behind the Sun album. That was one of my favorite Clapton albums. Was Behind the Sun, and my favorite track was that "Same Old Blues" song.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
don't know if you'd ever heard it.
Yep. Yep.
And that's what that song reminds me of tone wise.
What kind of feed
Like I said, Joe and Josh just did an amazing job of getting so much out of me.
did Joe bring any of his collection in for you to be able to noodle on?
No, but nobody had, but he did have some a friend, a guitar dealer friend of his from the Texas area come by and bring a Telecaster for him to look at.
Ah,
He, yeah, he's a constant collector. You know, he was wheeling and dealing during the session, but
I'd love.
he didn't bring anything.
Now you're in Nashville, right?
No, I'm in Florida.
Oh, I thought you were in Nashville. Okay, okay,
Mhm.
because I know he's in Nashville, New
Well,
York,
he's
and
in Nashville,
LA.
among other places,
Yeah, yeah. So,
but
yeah, what?
I'm in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Okay, gotcha. So the feedback on the album, what are you hearing?
It's been great.
Good.
Oh, resoundingly great. Um, yeah, I don't. I don't think I've come across any bad feedback from
Good.
it. It's been doing extremely well. Been hanging in there on Billboard. I think a lot of that is due to us touring so much.
Yeah.
I mean, sales really equate to how much you put into touring and selling your product, but man, people have been buying it, and yeah, you could tell when it's doing well when you play a town you haven't played, when you play somewhere that you haven't played in a while, and you start playing a song and people are singing along to it,
Yeah. Yeah.
or people start calling out songs from the album.
Mm-hmm.
Like we were in Detroit. I hadn't played Detroit since 2017, maybe. And we got up there and played, and it was time to do 1,000 Heartaches. I said, well, it's time for me to do a love song. And people were like, 1,000 Heartaches. And I was like, wow,
Very cool.
that's really, like, I thought I was going to be introducing a song to these people that might not have heard it. Man, all these people had the record.
Cool.
So it's been pretty mind blowing.
Yep. Yep. This tour now, of course, Mike's not able to join. You got Gary Hoey in there, who is another top shelf artist. Love his work.
Yeah.
What can fans expect from the tour stops? And you're going to be in my neck of the woods in Knoxville next month, so I'm hoping to catch you guys there at the Bijou.
Well, I hope so too.
Yeah. Well, if I
What's
can, I'm
holding
going
you back? What's holding you back? Is something holding you back?
Not at all. I'm
Well,
going
then we'll see you there.
Okay. Will you have me arrested if I try to get backstage?
Not at all.
Okay, cool. Cool.
But we do tase people indiscriminately just for fun.
Well, I need a little excitement in my life. So, so what can fans expect from the tour? Because I know Gary's got his own bastion of fans out there, and you certainly do. What can fans from both camps expect from this tour and from each stop along the tour?
Well, Gary made a point of learning all of Mike's songs that Mike would normally do on this tour. So he's going to sing a bunch of Mike's songs from the Blood Brothers album, and we're going to include a handful of Gary's songs as well.
Super.
I mean, when Mike told me he couldn't do this, I didn't want to do the summer without him. And I said, well, we'll just take the summer off. And when you're ready to come back, we'll go back. And then he called me a couple days later and he said, look, it's Laura and my wish that you continue. We need you to continue. So I can't, I certainly couldn't turn down his wife's request, given what she's going through. And I was like, well, since you put it that way, and then he explained why it was the right thing to do, keeping the band working and keeping the brand working and keeping the company afloat, because the band is a representative of his label.
Yep.
And it's a mom and pop operation. It's not Alligator. It's not MCA or Columbia. It's a small label, and you need to keep working.
Yep.
And so I said, all right, I'll do it on the condition that we have somebody that I can lock in with, that I have a great chemistry with, because we have an amazing chemistry together, and I need something that comes close to that. So I made this list of artists, and then we narrowed it down to availability. But Gary was on the top of the list because every time I jam with Gary, it's always a good time, and we're very much in sync with each other, very much like Mike and I are.
Mm-hmm.
And he was available, and we reached out to him, and he agreed to do it. And he's been through some stuff. He has a connection to us because of what he went through. He lost his mom and his sister in the same year, and he lost his sister to cancer. So he felt very strongly about doing this. So, but it would have been it's a no-brainer that we work in some of Gary's tunes. Gary broke onto the scene in 1993 with an instrumental version of Hocus Pocus, the song by Focus, and that's what blew him up. So yeah, I mean, we have to throw that in there, and we have to throw some select songs of his that I just love listening to. That stuff that's been getting airplay on XM radio and through cable radio and stuff from his Neon Highway Blues album that's been getting a lot of airplay. So we're throwing in, it's Blood Brothers, but we're throwing in stuff to showcase Gary as well.
Cool.
And it'll be slightly different from Mike's from the show that we would have had with Mike, only because it's Gary Hoey.
Yeah. Yep. Of course, as I said a few minutes ago, I've seen you and I've seen Mike, but I've never seen you both together. I actually saw Mike. He opened for Johnny Winter in Dallas when I was living there, and gosh, I became an instant fan. But Gary, I've not seen in concert. I've listened to all of his music, of course, so that's going to be a special treat. What else is on your radar for the rest of the year? Then after this tour, what else you got going on?
Well, peppered in between Blood Brothers tours, I'll be on the road with my band, and so I think I got something in August. I think I got a week run coming in August, and then in November I have a tour for a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving, and it's just there are a lot of Blood Brothers dates happening in the summer, and then in the fall we got a big October run in Europe with the Blood Brothers. Whether it's with Gary or with Mike, we shall see. But it's going to continue, and just work as much as we can. If the lockdown taught us anything, is that you need to take the work while you can, and
that's right.
That's what I'm doing.
Cool. One final question for you, and Albert, I hope we get to talk a lot more in the future. So maybe I'll ask you this every other time we talk. But
fine.
And I don't mean it to be a macabre type of question, but especially in light of what's going on with Mike and his wife and that type of thing, maybe it might take a little more focus or shed a little different light. And that is when you step off of the great tour bus at the great gig in the sky, to borrow from Pink Floyd. How do you want to be remembered? And what do you hope your legacy is?
I don't know. I don't know if I place much importance in how I want to be remembered, because I'll be worm feed. I mean, I guess if I care about what anybody thinks of me, it's my family and what they think of me. So I hope I come out. I hope when I'm gone that my wife thinks I was a great husband, and my daughter thinks I was a great dad, and my grandkids thought I was okay. And I'm just trying to be the good person that I am now, and just live for the here and now, and try to do good deeds now for people, and I'm just trying to be a good person now, and whatever people think of me after I'm gone is up to them.
Yep. Well, I think you're great. I think your music's great.
Thank you,
love your
Randy.
work, and I look forward to seeing you next month. And Albert, my door is open to you anytime, and it's open to Mike and the whole Gulf Coast roster for that matter. I mean, anytime I can help you guys out, please let me know, and we will get one of these set up, and I'll plug the heck out of you if I can. So,
well, I'm sure Mike is going to see this, and it's going to mean a lot to him when he does. So, thank you.
I think the world of him, and his wife is in my prayers. So is he. And I will be seeing you guys, or you and Gary, next month.
Yes, see you next month.
All right, take care, my friend.
Thanks,
Stay
bro.
safe. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.